So we have some interesting news when it comes to the knockouts in Impact Wrestling, because last night on Impact Wrestling, it looks like we have found out Deonna Purrazzo, the Knockouts champion, her latest challenger for the Knockouts Championship when it comes to Hard to Kill in January. On last night's episode of Impact Wrestling, we saw Taya Valkyrie challenge Purrazzo to a title match at Hard to Kill. Valkyrie warned that Purrazzo is lucky she hasn't had to face her yet, but her time will come next month. The Impact Hard to Kill 2021 pay-per-view will take place on Saturday, January 16th from Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. But it was also a very successful night for Deonna Purrazzo on Impact Wrestling, because not only did she win Knockout of the Year, of course she's the current Knockouts champion, but she also won Wrestler of the Year too. Now when it comes to this match at Hard to Kill, it's actually quite surprising, isn't it? It's quite surprising because the reason I say it's quite surprising is because as far as I'm aware, and as far as several reports have come out have stated, we thought that Taya Valkyrie, her contract was expiring with Impact Wrestling. Specifically, it was going to expire on December 31st. So as January 1st came around for 2021, Taya Valkyrie would be a free agent and allowed to sign with any pro wrestling company that she desired. But Hard to Kill is on January 16th, so what is going on there? Has Taya Valkyrie re-signed with Impact Wrestling, or is this just a case of a handshake deal to finish off a program? I would suspect it's probably the latter, if I'm going to be brutally honest. As far as I'm aware, we haven't heard anything about Taya Valkyrie signing a new deal with Impact Wrestling. There had been rumours that she tried to trademark her name, and she has filed to trademark the Taya Valkyrie name, and people have said, oh, is that a case of she's leaving Impact Wrestling? Not really. She used the name Taya Valkyrie, I think, going back to like 2010 on the independent scene or something like that, so that's nothing really new. I think it's just a case of wanting to own the trademark for the Taya Valkyrie name, and then she can use it wherever she wishes, wherever she goes if she does leave Impact Wrestling afterwards. So I don't know if that's really an indicator that she's going to leave or not. I think what is a big surprise, like I said, that she's got this booking for the January 16 Hard to Kill pay-per-view. I think potentially, until we hear news that she has signed a new deal or anything like that of Impact Wrestling, I would suspect it's just a case of, look, I haven't signed a new deal, but I can do these extra dates. We'll do these extra dates and we'll try and reassess things in the meantime or something like that. It's not unheard of, and it's not, frankly, uncommon that pro wrestlers work on a handshake deal. I say this all the time. Rey Mysterio for WWE, the biggest company in North America and the world, this year was working on a handshake deal with WWE all over the summer while they were negotiating his contract. So it's not unprecedented, it's not unheard of. So it could be a case that Taya Valkyrie is just trying to work a handshake deal, which maybe she's still negotiating with Impact Wrestling, or furthermore, maybe she just wants to finish off this program with Deonna Purrazzo and put over the new, younger Knockouts champion. That absolutely could be the case, and do the favours on the way out. You know, Taya Valkyrie is the longest reigning Knockouts champion in the company's history. What better way for her to go out than a pay-per-view, high-caliber pay-per-view match against the current Knockouts champion, against the Wrestler of the Year, the Knockout of the Year, and put her over as she leaves the company. I could absolutely see that happening. So just because I suppose that she is going to be appearing at Hard to Kill doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have Taya Valkyrie sticking around for a long time. It may just be a handshake deal, or it may just be a one-off appearance. You have to remember, Impact Wrestling have taped all of the content up to Hard to Kill weekend. So if Taya Valkyrie does make an appearance at Hard to Kill, it's just one more appearance. Maybe that's how she gets written off of TV. So we'll have to wait and see for that one. When it comes to Deonna Purrazzo winning Knockout of the Year and Wrestler of the Year, it's tough to argue. It's tough to argue. Now, I know that Deonna Purrazzo signed with Impact Wrestling, was it back in June, July? So she only has been with the company about 6 months. Can you name a knockout that's arguably been better than her this year? I think it's pretty difficult. Deonna Purrazzo has had fantastic matches against the likes of, obviously, her matches with Jordynne Grace I thought were fantastic. I thought the match at Slammiversary was very, very good. Way, way better than Dave Meltzer rated. Not like his star ratings mean anything. I thought the match that they had for Impact Emergence, the Iron Man match, that main evented Night 2 of Impact Emergence, I thought was even better. I think it's one of the matches of the year when it comes to Impact Wrestling. So for her to be Knockout of the Year, no surprise. Wrestler of the Year, again, look at the options, I suppose. I think she had to be up there in the conversation. She had to be up there in the conversation. It's interesting because in a second we're going to talk about Deonna Purrazzo, because she's spoken about who she'd like to face from AEW, and I wanted to sort of merge two videos into one here. But it's interesting before we talk about AEW, because in AEW, this is so the biggest difference between how Impact Wrestling views their knockouts and how AEW views their female wrestlers, is that in AEW, if they did end-of-year awards, which I don't think they're doing, but if they did end-of-year awards, what are the chances that the Wrestler of the Year would go to Hikaru Shida or Britt Baker or anyone like that? Not a chance. Not a chance in the world. Not because there are better options out there or anything like that, because they haven't given the opportunity to shine in the way that Deonna Purrazzo has. Have you had Hikaru Shida had main events? Have you had Hikaru Shida main event TV specials? No. You just haven't. Have you had Hikaru Shida and the Women's Championship be put in a position to succeed for AEW? No, you haven't. So it just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen that an AEW Women's Wrestler would get Wrestler of the Year, not because they're not good enough, but purely because they don't get the opportunity to succeed. Now, as I mentioned, Deonna Purrazzo has also been talking about who she would like to face from AEW. Now, of course, as I mentioned, there has been so much talk about crossover between AEW wrestlers, Impact Wrestling stars, about Kenny Omega since he's been appearing in Impact Wrestling. Who could go the other way? Could there be more coming in? Could we have an Impact Wrestling versus AEW pay-per-view? Could we have a TV special, a talent trade? At this point, anything is possible, and certainly people, myself included, are beginning to fantasy book and wonder what if and what will we see in the future when it comes to this working relationship. Wow. Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo was a recent guest on Sitting Ringside with Dave Penza. Of course, Dave Penza is the Impact Wrestling ring announcer and legendary WCW ring announcer too. Now, during the interview, the top star of the Impact Knockouts division expressed her interest in facing two of the top AEW stars in the future. Purrazzo said she is interested in facing either Dr. Britt Baker or the AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida. Now, Purrazzo also mentioned that she wanted to face Taya Valkyrie at Hard to Kill, so just in the same way that she was absolutely right that she is going to be facing Taya Valkyrie at Hard to Kill, potentially she could be right about facing Britt Baker. Now, she was asked, in the context of this quote, I don't want to get it out of context, she was asked who she wanted to face at Hard to Kill. Again, she mentioned these AEW names, and then she mentioned Taya Valkyrie. But this is what she had to say, quote, I would love to wrestle Britt Baker at Hard to Kill. I would love to wrestle Hikaru Shida at Hard to Kill. But as far as our Impact roster goes, my number one right now, just because we've had some interactions, is Taya Valkyrie. She says she is the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time, and I'm so over it. So I'd like to defeat her, break her arm, pile driver her, shut her up for a little bit. So definitely Taya, and a rematch with Rosemary would be great. Now, of course, when it comes to the history, Deonna Purrazzo was signed with WWE before being released earlier this April. She quickly signed to Impact Wrestling and has showed everyone she's at the top of her game, winning the Knockouts Championship from Jordynne Grace at Slammiversary, losing it at Bound for Glory to Su Yung, but she's quickly won it back. She's a two-time Knockouts champion, and I think arguably she is maybe the best knockout on the roster right now. Well, according to the End of Year Awards, she is. So when it comes to these matches against these AEW competitors, Britt Baker versus Deonna Purrazzo, I think would be very, very interesting. To be honest, I think Britt Baker is the best female character in AEW right now. I think she has such control over what her character is, such control on the comedic side, but she is such a great heel. I always found her, when she was that smiling babyface at the start of her AEW run, to be very false, and just there was something we just couldn't connect with as an audience. It was similar to before, like this is how a babyface works. You come out, you slap hands, you smile, and you wave at the fans. That didn't feel right when it comes to Britt Baker. It always felt like Britt Baker, there was something more in there, and I think as this role model character, as this heel, this relationship with Tony Schiavone and all this stuff, is brilliant. I'm a huge fan of Britt Baker. I think her character works great. But if I wanted to see Deonna Purrazzo face anyone from the AEW roster, I would want it to be Hikaru Shida. Hikaru Shida, to me, she is the best, I think the best female worker on the roster, without any doubt, to be honest. And I think that you got then, I mentioned it before, when it comes to Kenny Omega and Rich Swann, what's the biggest match Impact Wrestling and AEW can do right now? It'd be Impact World Champion versus AEW World Champion. Why? Because it's the two world champions. You don't see stuff like that from two separate promotions, the two world champions facing off that often. It's the same when it comes to the Knockouts division. They're two world champions, just a different division, and arguably they're the two best wrestlers in their divisions on that roster. Now, obviously, there are other names that technically compete underneath the AEW umbrella, Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb. Of course, Thunder Rosa is contracted to the NWA, but she appears for AEW. Serena Deeb is contracted to AEW, but she competes for the NWA. I think that I would be interested, very, very interested in seeing Deonna Purrazzo versus Thunder Rosa. I think if AEW signs Thunder Rosa full-time from the NWA, which I don't think is happening for a couple of years, because I think Thunder Rosa is under contract to the NWA for a couple of years, I think that would be a phenomenal match. Deonna Purrazzo versus Thunder Rosa, are you kidding me? It would be unbelievable. It would be absolutely unbelievable. Now, when it comes to these matches with Deonna Purrazzo versus Hikaru Shida or Britt Baker, I would love to see it. Obviously, we know it's not going to happen at Hard to Kill because, as I mentioned, Taya Valkyrie is going to be facing Deonna Purrazzo. But I think we could see it in the future. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I absolutely think that we could see it happen in the future. And I would quite frankly love to see some of the AEW talent in the women's division come over to Impact Wrestling. The main reason why I would want to see that is because I want to see the AEW female talent come over to Impact Wrestling. I want to see the main event a TV show. I want to see the main event a TV special. I want to see a main event a pay-per-view. I want to see them have phenomenal matches because it would absolutely prove my point. I want to see, whether it's Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, Nyla Rose, whoever. I want to see Abaddon. I want to see these names come over to Impact Wrestling, face off against the Knockouts, Abaddon versus Rosemary. Can you imagine that? Abaddon versus Su Yung. The craziness they could do in those kind of matches. I want to see the AEW female talent come over to Impact Wrestling, and I want to see them just knock it out the park. Why? Because it would just prove my point. And that point is that the failings of the women's division in AEW has nothing to do with talent. I am so tired of hearing this argument when it comes to why isn't the AEW women's division doing well? Or lots of people criticize the AEW women's division for being the part of AEW that's really been the letdown, right? AEW's been around for about 18 months now, and the one big criticism I think most people would say, you know, obviously about the spots and the super kicks and the high flying and blah, 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 the big major criticism, I think universally, that everyone could agree on is that the women's division isn't what it should be. And I'm so tired of the argument, well, that's the talent. They just need to bring in bigger and better talent. They need to have talent that's more experienced. Some of the talent on their roster is inexperienced, and it will come. It will come eventually. And I do partially agree that some of the talent on the roster is inexperienced, but I think the failings of the AEW women's division has nothing to do with the talent. They've got some absolutely fantastic talent. The idea that they need better talent or the talent they have isn't good enough. Like with any roster, you have bad talent, but to say that the AEW women's division isn't filled with good talent is just false. It's a myth. Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, Hikaru Shida, Thunder Rosa, Serena Deeb, Taya Conte, Abaddon, they're great talents, great characters. The issue is, and the issue always has been, it's the booking. It's the booking. I've mentioned it before. It's not about investing money in bringing in more talent. It's about investing time into the talent you have. It's about giving talent opportunities to thrive and succeed in AEW. Because that's the issue when it comes to the women's wrestling in AEW. They're just not giving the opportunities to succeed. We don't know if they can succeed or not because they're not given the opportunity to. They're not given opportunities to main event TV shows. When have we ever seen the AEW Women's Division main event an episode of Dynamite? We haven't. When have we seen the AEW Women's Division main event a pay-per-view or a TV special? We haven't. And again, the excuse I hear from a lot of people is, well, you know, Dynamite's only been around a year. You can't say that. That's not fair. What? So there's been like 50, 60 episodes of Dynamite and we still haven't had a woman main event the show? How long is it going to take? Because if you're saying it needs to take 3, 4, 5 years, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Impact Wrestling, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, they have the females main eventing all the time. They give them the opportunity to succeed. To say that, oh, it's the talent's fault and they're not having great matches. How can you have the talent having great matches when their matches are only lasting 5 minutes on Dynamite every single week or their enhancement matches on Dark? Those 5-minute matches on TNT, on Dynamite, in a position or in a segment where they're not going to thrive, you can't tell me that's the talent fault. That's the booking fault. You need to give the talent main event spots. You need to give the talents multiple storylines. You need to give the talents 10-15 minute matches where they can tell a story, where they can actually have something to sink their teeth into, you know, take the audience on a ride, tell a story to the audience. And again, you have this response, well, we only have 2 hours on Wednesday on TNT. That's the only time we have. We can't fit everyone into the show. Tough. And tough luck. Okay, you work with what you have. Impact Wrestling, they only have 2 hours on Access TV every week, but I'm pretty sure the Knockouts heavily feature on that show. They have multiple matches, TV main events, TV special main events. Deonna Purrazzo's main event is a TV special. She's been with the company 6 months. So the idea of, well, we only have 2 hours on a Wednesday with TNT and maybe our talents and experience, it's just excuses. It's just that. It's just an excuse. If you cared enough to make the division work in AEW, you would invest the time. That is the difference between Impact Wrestling, WWE, and AEW, is that Impact Wrestling and WWE, they make the time to have their women's division thrive and succeed. AEW doesn't. It's not a priority. That is literally it. And again, I always go back to this because these comments need to always be spoken about because he can't get away with saying these kind of things, was Cody Rhodes on that media call prior to Full Gear last month in November. People openly were criticising the fact that we had a women's championship match at Full Gear. It was Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose, and lots of people were saying, rightfully so, Cody, there's no story. We haven't seen really anything featured on TV. We've seen these small segments, but there's no storyline. There's no story. What's going on? Why isn't there a story? And then you had Cody Rhodes say this just complete BS response. Well, not every match needs a story. We've been conditioned by the company, referring to WWE, that a storyline's going to kick off because there's an invisible camera backstage in catering and someone's going to be fighting over a piece of pie or a cake. Not every match needs a story. Can't it just be a match for a championship? No, it can't. And the reason it can't is because I don't think Cody Rhodes ever has a pay-per-view match that doesn't have a story. Cody Rhodes always gets his time on Dynamite. Cody Rhodes always gets his story for his matches on pay-per-view and on TV. Cody Rhodes is main eventing. Why? Because he's given the opportunity to, and every match has a storyline or a story. So to say that the women's matches don't need a story, that's just BS. Translated, we don't care. It's not a priority for us. That is exactly it. So I would love with everything in my heart for Hikaru Shida or Britt Baker to come over to Impact Wrestling, face Deonna Purrazzo in a main event of a pay-per-view, of a TV special, or just an episode of Impact Wrestling in the main event, tear the house down, have everyone raving about it on social media, give 5, 6, 7, 10 stars, and just prove everyone wrong in AEW that doesn't take serious women's wrestling. Because that's just what it is. It's booking philosophy. I've mentioned it before. It's booking philosophy. And when it comes to AEW's booking of females, actions speak louder than words. So I really, really, really do hope. That we do see this match in the future, and I hope it takes place on Impact Wrestling soil, and I hope they smash it out the park and they prove those people in AEW that aren't taking women's wrestling seriously enough that it's worth investing in, and it can absolutely make money and it can absolutely draw. I really hope that happens. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Deonna Purrazzo facing Taya Valkyrie at Hard to Kill? What do you also think about Deonna Purrazzo saying she wants to face AEW's Hikaru Shida or Britt Baker in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So get involved with the community, drop a comment below and share your opinion. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.